I'm Dawn Tesserero. I'm from St. John's Church in Jamaica Plain. I'm also part of the Creation Care Network. We have been working with Bishop Budd and all the faithful people that are interested in reminding you, you are creation. You're a part of creation. At St. John's Church in Jamaica Plain, we have a fabulous Roxbury pudding stone foundation and walls. And did you know that's porous? Because we love water. Not only the water that comes in through the roof and damages the insides, but the water we can bless our children with in the baptismal font. At St. John's, we care for creation intentionally in our sacramental living. We share the same vows at both sacraments, baptism and confirmation. How does this tie with creation care, do you ask? We're all called to minister as part of our baptismal vows. I choose Creation Care, and I'm a member of this Creation Care Network. And it's by what I do and how I live, and helping push resolutions with the Creation Care Network and working with lay and parishioners in my church, in the diocese, working with deacons, working with priests. And at confirmation, we reaffirm our baptismal vows. And if we go back, here's Bishop Bud Cedarholm bringing me into the Episcopal Church. I'd been a senior warden, a junior warden, in charge of a bunch of fundraisers, but I didn't know that as a Catholic confirmed, I could do this too. So I did the baptismal covenant, Promise 6, with two little kids, 7 and 11, and that was something that Bishop Budd brought to our church. Bishop Alan Gates today is doing it at another church and making sure that baptismal promise is there. We'll talk about that in a minute. That baptismal promise, if everyone in the room would recite it with me, will you cherish the wondrous works of God and protect the beauty and integrity of all creation? I like that.
I will.
Did you hear what David said in the front?
I will with God's help.
I will with God's help.
All right. That's what we're here to show you how you can do it. This is action that we do in worship and in ministry. In 2010, we resolved to affirm the call to urge congregations on something called the Genesis Convention or Covenant. The covenant. And in that covenant, it's how can you reduce your energy use, your fossil fuels by 50%. So we're climbing really close to 2020. Have you heard of the Genesis Covenant yet? We've gotten the word out a little bit. Today we'll get the word out a little bit more, and each one of you can help us spread the word. Today is the season of creation, not only because creation is every day, but the church is actually asking us, the larger church is asking us, let's participate and do it together. Bishop Michael Curry is asking us, faith bodies like the Episcopal Church occupy a unique space in the worldwide climate movement. Caring for God's creation by engaging climate change is not only good for the environment, but it's good for the health and welfare of all our people. How do you do it? We renovated our church. If you saw some of the slideshow downstairs, we did an improved heating system. Why? Because we had blue-lipped preschool kids getting cold. We had choir members coughing because we had a heating system that was smoking when they were having choir practice. And we did it with the help of Mass Interfaith Power and Light stewards, Tom and Jim. If you haven't had an energy assessment of your church, you could do that too. We're also pushing forth a resolution, and that resolution is for the Paris Grove. If there are any delegates here, please see me after the service, and we'll tell you about the Paris Grove resolution and the baptismal promise.
So it was a great introduction to how creation care is sacramental, but it is also liturgical. Look on page 827 of our Book of Common Prayer, prayer number 41 for the conservation of natural resources. So when I get the objection, well, what does creation care have to do with our faith? All I have to do is point right here. And you'll see here that it ties to another one of the themes we've talked a lot about today of social justice. Because the prayer says, give us wisdom and reverence so to use the resources of nature that no one may suffer from our abuse of them. Climate justice is social justice. Social justice is the work of the church. So one of the ways we've done this at St. Dunstan's is by putting solar on that big, beautiful, sunny roof we have there. We did this in 2013, and at the time we did it, we were one of the first in the diocese to do that. Today, I am delighted to say that from St. Gabriel's in Marion to All Saints in Danvers, from St. Bartholomew's in Cambridge to St. Andrew's in Framingham, there is solar all over the diocese, and I've only mentioned a few of them. Now, there are very many benefits to going solar. The first one people are interested in are, of course, the financial impact. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that. That's good for that the financial impact is there, but the more important impact is that creation care impact. Obviously, you are not emitting any carbon into the atmosphere that fuels climate change when you go solar. And at St. Dunstan's, we have reduced our carbon footprint by 10 tons annually for the last 5 years. But it's also mission impact. This is a statement to the community. People drive by the center of Dover. They see these panels in our church, and they know this is not a church that is looking backward to the past. This is a church looking forward to what it is called to do today and to prepare the world for the future. And here's the chart. We use a lot of electricity because we have a lot of electric baseboard heating, really terrible. But because we're now solar, we've actually beaten the Genesis covenant already. But you can see we still emit almost 6 tons, well, a little over 6 tons of carbon, so we still have work to do. Accordingly, 2 years ago, our vestry endorsed the Paris Pledge from the National Interfaith Power and Light Organization, which says that by 2030, your congregation commits to reduce its carbon pollution by 50%. Ha, we're already there. And then your congregation will set a goal of being carbon neutral by 2050. Now, my vestry looked at that, and I'm very proud to say, they said, well, gee, we're pretty close already. Couldn't we get to carbon neutral by 2025? Being the chair of the Environmental Stewardship and Property Committees, I said, give me the resources, we'll get there. So here's what we're going to do. Right now, we've got heating systems that are coming up on being 20 years old. They're still working okay, but that 20-year mark is about the point where they're due for replacement. So we have started the analysis, started gathering the data to understand, can we upgrade to something like air source heat pumps, one of the newer technologies that will further lower our carbon footprint. We also have an old standing hot water heater tank that sits there for 6.5 days a week that no one uses any hot water, but we're using electricity, so we're going to look at replacing that. And then when we reduce everything as much as possible, we're also looking into buying renewable electricity or solar electricity from a solar farm for what we can't produce ourselves. So what I want to leave you with here, we have so far tied creation care action to the sacraments. We have tied it to the idea of social justice that we have talked about so much today. And now I want to bring that one notch closer. We are here today because we are people of compassion. We are Episcopalians because we are people of compassion. We are followers of Christ because we are people of compassion. And over the years, from Katrina to Harvey to Irving to Maria to Florence, probably many of you have written checks to Episcopal Relief and Development, the Red Cross, or your other favorite organization. Wonderful acts of compassion. But turning down your thermostat, replacing your boilers, putting solar panels on your buildings, both your churches and your homes, are also acts of compassion where you are saying, I recognize people who may be suffering from my use of this form of energy, and I'm going to take the responsibility to lower that impact and do what I can to contribute to social justice.
And here's how to love your neighbor in other practical ways. And just remember, what you do and what you learn in your parish on Sunday, or when you're there on evenings, or when you're doing acts of compassion by turning down the thermostat, do it at home, do it at work. Let your kids take it to school. All of these places, meeting the Genesis covenant, reducing down 50% or more, every place you take a breath, make it happen. Here's an example from Trinity Topsfield. One of the things that you should know about houses of worship is they are the biggest energy hogs in the Northeast. Let me tell you, that's what happens. And you can make the 50% readily, as Jim did and everywhere else has done. And Trinity Topsfield had. Warm, lower your dollars, lower your carbon footprint. How do you do it? Small steps, even though they're big problems. Deal with specific actions. How do you generate the sorts of lighting and the heating and cooling you need? How does it get out there? How do you control it? You saw the thermostat. All of these things get big savings. I love the green $, and the lessons learned. First, the small steps. Trinity did 44 windows in a classroom wing, made them so they weren't losing heat out or hot air coming in there. Replace the thermostats. Get programmable. And by the way, the latest way to deal with your thermostats is with this. Wi-Fi linked. You don't have to have your sexton or whoever does this come in from somewhere else to make it happen, make the changes. Mixing valves replaced. Mixing valve basically says, okay, we only want to put as much heat out there as is needed for the room, and we can do that. Big problems that they had there, only 4 zones for the building. That meant you can see how big the building was, and yet they had to heat a whole zone if even only just one space was used. At least they had 4 zones. Lots of churches I've been to have got one thermostat for the whole building. It's in the sanctuary. Somebody comes into the office, gee, a clergy person wants to be warm. What do? They got to heat the whole place up. Not a good idea. 45-year-old boiler? Huh? I'm old. Let me tell you, the older you get, the crankier you get. You don't want your boiler to be like me. So we went to high-efficiency boilers. They went to an indirect fired hot water off their boilers, or as Jim's going to do, a direct tankless domestic hot water. Went up to 11 heating zones, heating only places where you needed it when you needed it. Know what your schedule is. They did the energy management system, the Wi-Fi control, and here's what they were able to do. 67% reduction in their money. Green grows 2 ways. Yeah, 50% we meet the Paris, but hey, that money goes to the bank, too. Green grows 2 ways, 53% reduction. Heating degree days, in that case, essentially identical. A degree day is how cold is it, how much heat do you have to have. The nice part about the reduction of cost, that pays for what you're doing. Who has a loan that might pay attention to that? Oh, yes, the Diocese of Massachusetts. It's called the Green Loan. And you can use all those savings to pay for things. So here's what they learned. First of all, don't go alone. Ask the diocese. Ask Mass Interfaith Power and Light. Get the energy audit work done. Some practical things. Okay, don't have just one boiler in. I'll tell you the frozen funeral story sometime, but you don't want one. 2 or more boilers, better efficiency, they always heat. Grill the bidders, get the bids. Keep the professional team involved. Monitor what's going on. The first year there, it's like taking care of a new baby. Hey, you need to know when the diapers are pooped. So same thing with your heating. Remote Wi-Fi EMS is there. Keep it sensibly simple. Some of this stuff's hard to do. Not everybody knows how to deal with a thermostat. Don't let them touch it. Get the utility company rebates. Love God, do the right thing.